All right, so welcome to the Linux command line example or tutorial. We're going to go ahead and get started with some basic commands. So I have already opened terminal, which is obviously here, and I have enlarged that so that it's a little bit more conducive for how I like to operate. So a couple of things. So let's first start off with one of the things that a lot of users fail to realize is where are they in their directory structure. So we're going to say print working directory. So that tells us that we're within the root directory, and we are the root user. So if we do an ls, which stands for list, it will show us what is contained within the root directory, which there is a file folder called desktop, documents, downloads. There's actually a file called install Realtek driver, and then there are additional file folders in blue. We can change the way that command works by providing options. So I'm going to provide ls-al. So that provides that in a particular list for me. So that does a few things. So first up, one of the things is ownership and file or listing type. So here we have, actually, let's see so the D for desktop stands for it's a directory. If we go down here and see the install Realtek driver, this particular item does not have a D, therefore it is not a directory, so it's not a file folder. All right, so the next group is that let's see if I can select that right. So RWX. So the first one, the D or the dash, indicates whether that's a directory / file folder. The next grouping of 3 tells you what the owner of that file can do, or folder, what they can do with it. So R stands for they can read it, W stands for they can write to it, and X means that they can execute it or execute items within it. Now that is the individual owner. So in this case, that's root, that's us. Now we belong to the administrator group. So other people, if they are assigned to the administrator group, would have the ability to read and execute only. All right, because there is no W there, there is a dash. So anybody in the administration group can only read and execute. Now, all other users on the system have a read and execute only as well. Why is this important? This is important because sometimes when you install drivers or you copy files, you may have troubles with them, so you're going to want to come in and look at what are the rights that you have, and you may need to change those. And we're going to get into those a little bit. So now we want to actually go through the file hierarchy that is set up on a Linux/Unix system. So I'm going to run the clear command, and the clear command just clears the screen for me. So a couple of things. We can do up arrows to go back and get commands that we had, which are handy. Now I want to do something called change directory. I want to go up 1. So I'm going to do cd space ... That brings me up a directory. Now if we look, my command prompt has changed. Instead of a approximate sign, I have a slash. So now if we do a print working directory, I just get a slash. So what does that mean? Well, let's do an ls, and I'm in a different place now. Okay? I'm in an entirely different place. I am at the root, not to be confused with root user, I am at the root of the drive, okay, for this particular machine. So think of this like this main C directory or the C drive directory, if you're more familiar with Windows. A lot of people typically can, I'll say, make that comparison relatively easy. We're going to get into how do you navigate this file system. So let's go back to the root directory, which is where we were. So let's do a change directory, and then we're going to type in RO. And if I hit the tab key, and I strongly recommend you remember to use the tab key. The tab key makes your life better because you don't always have to type out the full command. So I've typed in cd space RO and hit tab, and it finished, and now I hit enter. Now I'm back in that particular directory. So I'm going to change back up 1, and we're going to clear this. we're going to list. I'm going to list with an AL, which gives me a nice breakdown. It tells you here's all the things that are within the root or the main drive on this particular computer. Okay. One of the other things is there are relative references within Linux. So I can say I want to go to my home directory. So I just typed in CD space and then the approximate sign. I forget the actual name of that particular character. Now if I do a print working directory, I'm back into root. Okay. So there's two ways I can get there. I can go, let's go back. I can do a CD root and I'm there and it goes back, or okay, so now it's going to yell at me because I typed that wrong, which is read your command output. We're going to clear print working directory. So again, I can change by tab. All right, and then we clear it again. Now, we've done change directory. We've done ls for list. We can actually make directories. So let's do an ls-al. So we have directories here. Let's change to the desktop. Oops. And by the way, I don't know if you caught that. So let's do this on purpose. I get an error. Then you're probably saying, wait a minute, there's a desktop folder. There is. Capitalization matters. Uppercase, lowercase matters. You have to be precise, okay? So we're going to DE, and I hit tab, save some time, hit enter. Okay, so now I'm in there. I'm going to ls that. And I have some files here, so let's make a directory. I'm going to call this new folder. Okay, so now I'm going to list again, and there's my new folder. Let's go in and check the rights on the new folder. It's a directory. I can read and write to it because I see this. Let's say I want to remove this directory. So let's say we have a directory, there's nothing in it, and we don't really want to do anything with it. So and we're going to get rid of it and clean it up. So now let's do this. So let's go to the trash, and we see we have one item in the trash. Let's shrink that. All right, so let's do this. So RM, I'm going to type in RM for remove, and I'm going to type in new, hit tab, and then I'm going to hit enter. And I cannot remove it with a normal RM command. I have to do a remove directory. My bad. RM. Now, the point of that, not that in doing it wrong, but if we go look, there is no new folder in my trash. Okay? That was the point of this, is that anything you delete on command line, so like for instance, let's say, let's make that directory again. Type, let's make it, let's change directory into it. Clear screen, I'm going to list, there's nothing in here. I'm going to use a command called history. Okay, and I'm going to actually, we can do something called redirect. So we can redirect output from screen. So I can do history and that puts it to screen. I can do a couple things as examples. So I'm going to do a history pipe. And that is the key shift and the key directly above enter. And I'm going to do more. So what this is this is a output redirect. One way to do that. I'm going to take the command output from history. I'm going to send it to the command more, which basically just will only show it a page at a time. So I'm going to hit that. So here now we see more in the bottom left corner. It's only showing me a page at a time. I'm hitting space bar, or I can hit Q for quit. I'm going to clear that. Also, I can take history and I can redirect that out to a file. I'm going to call myhistory.txt. So basically what this is another redirect, and I'm going to directly output that to a brand new file called myhistory.txt. Now I hit that and I hit list, there's my file, and if I do a cat my history, it then lists it, and since it's so long, because it's basically the contents of the history command, we're going to do a pipe more, and we get the same results again. Okay, so now let's say I want to go up a directory. I did cd space dot dot. I'm going to do a list. I'm going to do a remove directory, new folder. All right, and it's going to say nope, can't do it. You've got stuff in that directory. Okay, so I'm actually going to change directory into that folder. I'm going to see, that's right, I have this in here, so I'm going to do remove my history. So let's go check our trash. Still not there. Now I'm going to go up. I'm going to list. Now I'm going to do a remove directory, new folder. And we're going to check our trash. No trash. It's not in the trash. So command line deletes do not go to the trash. So keep that in mind. We're going to clear that. And let's say we forgot where we're at. Let's do a print working directory. I'm in the desktop. So let's move up one. Print. I'm going to list pretty much where I want to be. So we've gone through quite a bit already. We're about 11 minutes in here. So let's take a look at the file system. I'm going to go up to the root of the drive. I'm going to do an ls. So we have a lot of different information and file folders here. So what I'm going to do is list that in order. Let's go to the first one, which is bin. So let's do a change directory to bin, and we're going to list this. So what is in the bin folder are the basic programs. Okay, so this is where when you're running programs, a lot of them are actually being called from this /bin folder. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go back up one. Printer working directory, so we're in the root of the drive. So let's change to the boot folder. What is in the boot? So the information within the boot folder are files that are necessary to boot into Linux when you power up the machine or power up the VM. All right, so we're going to go back up one file or one point within the directory. We're going to change to the dev directory. We're going to list that. So the dev directory are basically device files. These files are used to run and interact with the actual physical devices connected to your computer. All right, so we're going to go up one again. Now we're going to change to the etc folder. We're going to list this one. This one's got a lot in there, all right, and these are configuration files, all right. So these are necessary to run different things. There's, like, you can see some cron jobs there, which are chronological jobs that run daily, hourly, monthly, etc. We're going to go up one, and then we're going to clear because it's a little messy, and then we're going to change directory to home. And there are no users within home. Okay, so these are typically personal files. So we're going to go back up. We're going to change directory to library. And so here's what we have for what are considered basic library files. And we're going to go back up one. And now we have, after lib, there's also lib32 and lib64, which are 32-bit and 64-bit versions, I believe. Lost and found. Let's see. Lost and found. There's nothing in there. That's probably for lost files that don't really have a home and get dropped there. And let's go to media. So we have the media file. All right. Now the media file. So I just plugged in a USB, all right, and let's do this. Helps when you. Okay, so if we take a look, there is now a USB plugged in there. You can see that here. I can get to that from the actual Explorer, but in command line, we're going to do an ls-al. So that's actually listed there and it's highlighted. So now, the point being is that the files are actually within there, so now I can change within that. Now I can see all of those files, and I can go into those as well if I so choose to. I'm going to exit that. Actually, let's change directory back in. So there it is. I'm going to actually unmount that. So that has now been unmounted. It's safe to remove. So I'm going to remove that, and now you don't see it anymore. So when that mounts, that's the folder that it's typically going to mount under. You can also go to this mount folder, which is temporary. There is nothing there at this time. We're going to go up. Let's go to our opt folder. There is apparently my teeth, or there's a teeth folder underneath there. The opt is typically extra applications from third parties. We're going to go back up. Then we went into root. We've done that before. Let's change directory into run. So these are basically volatile runtime data. So when you're running your system, some data is stored here while it's running. When it's done, this goes away, and you restart, new versions of that will be stored there. Okay? Let's go back up one, and let's go to sbin. And sbin has additional systems programs, so you can see those here. And let's see here. We're going to go back up one. We're going to print our work, so we're still at the root. Let's change directory to srv. And these are typically data used by servers. So if you're running a server, etc., we're going to go back up. We're going to change directory into temp. There are some temp files here that are kept during run. We're going to go back up, and then we are going to change into USR. So here's user folders. And these are, well, I'm sorry, applications are typically here as well. And then we have the var. And so this is also, this is different data handled by what's known as daemons. So daemons are basically a type of program that runs in the background. So these are housed here. And we're going to go back up. And let's see here. Now, let's say, for instance, we want to do, so we did cat, we did piping, we did pipe more. So let's say we want to find something within the file structure. So let's use the find command. We're going to search within the etc folders, and we're going to search for something with the name of hosts. So that comes back with that answer. It's basically saying, here's two folders with the names of hosts. Let's say I want to change that, and I don't just want folders. I don't want folders. I want something that's named and we're getting the same thing. Now, let's say we want to see what processes are running on our system. And that is here. All right, so that obviously is a good reason to look at the piping to more. So let's do this. Or, if we want to be clever, let's do this. Let's do ps-augs. Before we do that, let's change directory to root into desktop, and I can do multiple. I can go down file path as much as I want when I do a change directory. So I just jumped over and down one. I'm going to clear. Now I'm going to do a ps-aux. I'm going to output that to processes.txt, and that is now here. So I can open this way as well, and I have a nice little clean output to view a little bit differently. So I have PIDs here. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to kill or stop a particular process that was running. So let's say I wanted to stop the watchdog process, which is number 12. So you need to know the PID number. This tells you how much CPU usage and memory usage is in play with this particular process. All right, so the time and the command, in essence, that it was invoked from. So let's say we want to get rid of 12. Let's just say what I would do. We're not actually going to do this, but what I would do is to kill signal 12 and then hit enter. It will kill that process. This is particularly handy if you have a rogue process that you're concerned about. So let's try to wrap up here with how to check and change ownership. So we talked earlier about ownership of files. So let's say I want other people to be able to see and so I want other people to be able to, if they can read, actually no, let's not do it that way. Let's go up one. Let's move. Let's do this. Let's move. It'll be a good. So let's move a file. So let's move process to /root/ now let's just move it up to root. Actually, no. Let's move it up to the root of the, not root, the root folder, but let's move it to the very base level of the drive. All right, so we've just done that. So now you just saw that disappear in the background. So let's go up one, and let's go up one. And there is my process file. So now it's up above a user folder. So now I want to change people's access to it. So right now, let's see. It's not a directory. The owner can read and write to it. It's not an executable file, which is fine. But let's say we want to make it so other people can write to it. So other people, if they have accounts on the system, I want to change mod. So I want to change modify this particular file, and I want to change it to read, write, and execute. So I'm going to use 777 process. And now when I run that, if I run that, oops, it would be helpful if I ran the right command. Now mod. Okay, so this is a good example. Let's do man change mod. So this is so the man command gives us the ability to go through and look at what we want to do with a file. So remember the -al. This tells us what those flags and options are, and it gives us the ability to see what they are. So now I'm going to quit. You can actually read through that. Recursive 777. I don't think this is going to work. Okay, there we go. So I actually, the reason I got that to work is so if you notice now everybody has, so I have read, write, execute. Anybody in the admin group has read, write, execute, and anybody on the system, any user in any group has read, write, execute to this process text file now. And the reason how I got that to work was change mod, which is the command. So change modify -R is recursively set it, which means do this a sweeping set for this. And 777. So basically, there's different numbers that signify different options. So now, if you see I did a 1, that gives it an execute. Okay, so see, now when I'm changing my numbers, that changes my options on that particular file setting or ownership setting and rights. So now we're gonna, as I go up numbers, so now you see it's moving around. The thing to remember is the one that I'll say I typically use, especially if I go, okay, you're going to have to look it up. You're going to have, frankly, you'll have to look the numbers up unless you just happen to use them enough to memorize them. I have remembered that 7 is the number that does a sweep across that. So the first 7 stands for me. The second 7 stands for the group, in much the way we talked about ownership before. And the last 7 stands for everybody else in the system. So if I do this, okay, if we look now, because I put it 770, I basically went, okay, it's not a directory, we know that. I want read, write, execute, so I use 7. I used the second 7 for everybody in the administrator group gets read, write, execute. I used a 0 for everybody else on the system. That means they have no access to this file. Okay? So the tricky thing is you're going to have to play with this a bit. You're probably going to have to look it up if you end up using it the first few times at minimum. Okay? So we're going to try to wrap up here in a few minutes. A couple other things you're going to want to know, especially as we get into the CAN bus and some of the other, I'll say, networking concepts. ifconfig provides the, in essence, IP configuration. On Windows, it's ipconfig. On Linux, it's ifconfig. Some of the things that you're going to want to keep in mind here is I have an Ethernet connection, which is ETH0, and I also have a wireless LAN connection, which is WLAN 0. The iNet gives me the actual IP address. We'll get into the actual IP address, subnet masks, broadcast. Okay, we're going to get into those meetings when we get into network. You can also do a route. Why is the route important? The route tells me that on these particular ones, this is my default gateway, and then this is my default subnet mask. And then when we get into networking, that'll make a little bit more sense, hopefully by the time we're done with that. One of the other key commands that you're going to want to know is the W command. So the W command is basically who. So who is on the command, or who is logged in, I should say. Right now, it's only showing root because I have a GNOME session open, and then I also have terminal session open. If I put who am I, it tells me what my username is. Okay, I can also go uname -a. That tells me the distribution instance that I am running, if I need to know that. And I believe that lists everything that we're going to go through for this particular session. I would recommend potentially, now that you've watched it, if you have a VM installation running, practice this a little bit. When we actually do hands-on days, we will do a lot of command line.